Okay, amazing. We are live. I'm excited to be connecting with all of you for another live training. I think I've mentioned before that I'm really enjoying actually bringing my voice into Substack. As much as I love writing and as much as I love essays, I do love to yap and I love being on live video. And I actually feel like there's an importance of doing live video when it comes to talking about the nervous system and talking about nervous system education and actually what that looks like um, to create more co-regulation. So I see a lot of you guys hopping on right now, and I'd love to know where you're coming in from. How's your Friday going? Happy Venus Day for anyone that is into astrology. I think there's actually quite a few people into astrology in my community. So, where are you coming in from? For anyone that doesn't know, I live in Vancouver, Canada. It's very gray outside today, which sucks because it's my birthday soon, and I really want the summer vibes and the sun and the vitamin D to actually start coming out in the sky. But let me know where you're joining in from. Let me know how your day is going. And we are going to jump right into this topic, which was inspired by one of my viral essays around oxytocin, joining from Dallas. Ugh, amazing. I've only been to Austin, Texas, but I've never been to Dallas. Yay. I love that. 17 people. Incredible. Big from California, but Vegas right now. Edmonton, Alberta. Yay. Another Canadian. San Diego. My best friend lives in San Diego. Yeah. Happy Venus Day from LA. Incredible. I love it. Anyone else? Los Angeles, leg day right now. Yeah, let's fucking go. You're reminding me that I need to go to the gym. For anyone that doesn't know, going to the gym and strength training is chef's kiss for the nervous system. Blessings from Gaza. Ah, amazing. So, like I mentioned, if you want to keep popping in the chat where you're from, feel free to do so. Other than that, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I want to ensure that there is a precision with these trainings so that we're not just stuck on video calls all day. Um, mm, let's just ground in for a moment. So wherever you are, I invite you to just take a breath. Maybe breathing into your back body. If it feels good to close your eyes, close your eyes. Maybe just noticing the quality of your breath. We don't need to manipulate it into any sort of rhythm, but just noticing the natural rhythm that wants to come through when we are bringing our attention inward. Feels so good to be here with you all. Feels so good to be actually, I guess what's the word? Connecting with you all in this way so I can actually like chat with you in real time. And then when you're ready, if you haven't already, you can open up your eyes and come back. Calling from the Netherlands, and I'm in my luteal phase. If you're a little slow and receptive, amazing. I'm also in luteal as well. For all the women in the chat, if you want to let me know where you're at in your cycle, would love to know. Like I mentioned, this training, this conversation, I kind of need a name for them. I really want to do them bi-weekly. So if you ever have like inspiration for me of what to call these like Friday Venus Day female nervous system chats, let me know. Late luteal, yes. Let me know if you have any name inspiration because right now I'm just calling them trainings, but that doesn't feel very cute. Oh, postpartum, mama. Late luteal, full moon in a few days is behind us. Yeah, we're all gonna be bleeding soon. Early luteal. Okay, wow, a lot of luteal energy. Incredible. So this training was inspired by one of the essays that I feel like has gone viral. Also, one of my Substack notes that has gone viral is there's a lot of resonance that I'm noticing in this conversation of oxytocin, and which I love. And I think one of the main reasons why I feel like it's kind of catching wildfire is because it's not talked about a lot. So, if we know the history, does anyone familiar with nervous system regulation? Let me know. But oxytocin hasn't really become part of the conversation until a few years ago. It's like very a lot of female study on the body and the nervous system, just in general with the nervous system, that hasn't been properly educated. We haven't had a lot of information on it. A lot of nervous system regulation is centered in male bodies. I've been a little spicy lately and calling out the men that like to center themselves in my content. So if you are a man here, I love you and I'm so happy you're here. And my work is primarily speaking to the female nervous system because I often feel like there's so much emphasis on male bodies. And I love men. I have so many great male friends. I know a lot about the male nervous system, and that's not where I get lit up. I love talking about female bodies, and I love devoting my energy to supporting women and filling that gap with female bodies. So, yeah, it's always cortisol and dopamine. So, let's just even begin there. Now, I think dopamine in general can get a bad rap, but healthy dopamine is actually what is the primary regulator in male bodies. Oxytocin is the primary regulator in female bodies. And this is so important to understand as women because a lot of nervous system conversations, if they are in male centric bodies, are going to be dopamine induced. And while dopamine is important, healthy dopamine is important for women as well, it's not the primary regulator, right? Oxytocin is. So, what is oxytocin, right? I think we often associate it with the love hormone, right? It's the bonding hormone. So, I think there was someone that said that she was postpartum. And so, if you've breastfed babies or if you've been a mom, maybe you know or maybe you don't know that when you're breastfeeding, oxytocin is that hormone that creates that bonding agent or bonding connection with kids. And the beautiful thing is that that bonding energy is also what informs us on what we want to protect. It creates bonding and memories, but it also creates this protection of what we are bonded to. I think a good analogy of this or something that I like to think of this when it comes to this is like a mama bear, right? It's so loving and it's like taking care of you, but like the mama bear will like fuck anyone up if it's coming towards her kids. And I think that's really important to understand because I think we often associate oxytocin. And even the way in my content lately has been more of this like, yay, we're just gonna be in like chill, sensual vibes. Absolutely. And the other side of oxytocin is like, I will fucking kill for my babies and what I want to protect. So that's really important. Um, yeah, changes everything because no one ever talks about oxytocin when it comes to the female nervous system. One thing that I'd also like to mention is that not to shame other practitioners because this is just, I think, society and culture that the women and women's bodies are not properly studied. But I do think that that's why it's even more important to seek out therapists, to seek out body workers, to seek out breath. Anyone that has an understanding of the female body. There's a lot of yoga teachers, there's a lot of breathwork practitioners, there's a lot of people that, although they are so gifted at their craft. There's a lot of therapists that are gifted at their craft, but they don't actually understand the way a female body works. And I think that that is why a lot of women, we continue to be in addicted healing spirals and not actually creating resolution in the body because oxytocin is missing in this part of this conversation. So, what lowers oxytocin? Unprocessed trauma in the nervous system, chronic stress, over-exercising, under-eating, sleep deprivation. I think one of the biggest is toxic and unsafe relationships. So things that really create like this feeling of not being safe in the nervous system. Um, a few times this week or in the past few weeks, I think a few people have challenged me in my Substack notes, which is I'm always up for discourse when it's coming from a clean place. But one thing that I think I notice is people being like, you know, wearing silk and having flowers is just it's so surface level. Um, and yes and no, right? Yes and no. When we think of oxytocin, when we think of things that like create safety in the body, there's a lot of nuances to this. Creating beauty in our environments isn't surface level. And the very relationship of thinking that beauty is surface level is, I feel like a cultural gap that we see. So when we're thinking of oxytocin, when we're thinking of actually coming into relationship with oxytocin as a woman, it's going to look differently for everyone. So I just want to say that there's obviously nuance. I'm talking to a group. If you were my one-on-one client, I'd be able to actually sit down and assess and yada yada yada. So I'm talking to a group, so there's nuance. So don't take anything too seriously or too to heart. And if you have individual questions, you can ask them in the chat, or you can ask them in the community chat in the Substack app as well. And I'll do my best to answer things somewhat individually in the way that I can. But when we're thinking about oxytocin, we're wanting to think about things that like make our unique female bodies safe. What brings us into that deeper state of being able to experience and exhale. I'd also like to note that our oxytocin kind of changes and fluctuates in the cycle, which I mentioned in the last training, and something I think I'll eventually do maybe some sort of masterclass or training on here around the nervous system and how it changes throughout the cycle, because this is also important to note. A good rule of thumb too is if you are wanting to work with a nervous system practitioner, or the sad thing is like I don't think therapy actually has the ability to go this deep unless the therapist in itself wants to do the actual training required to work with women to create resolution in their body. But a good indicator of a good practitioner is if they ask in session, where are you at in your cycle? Where are you at in your cycle? And if you're postpartum, if you're in premenopause, menopause, all of those things are really important. I feel like my luteal phase, I need more oxytocin to regulate. Yeah. And you know why? Because when we go into luteal phase, we're more in a sympathetic state. So we're actually a little bit more prone to stress. So it would make sense, right? So it's really interesting when we actually start finding the scientific language to put together these intuitive things that we have maybe thought were just crazy, or or culture has made us feel like there's not this explanation, but it actually makes so much sense that you need oxytocin more to regulate. So that's why, like, forehead, like for me, I'm like, I love a forehead kiss from my partner. Does anyone else like, I sometimes need um, more intentional touch during my luteal phase. I might need to slow down or do like slower yoga during my luteal phase. Again, these examples, they're they're for me, but a great way to think about oxytocin is like connection, right? This is why in lots of cultures, like red tents and moon lodges are a thing when we're bleeding, because like being with other women is very oxytocin inducing. I like to, not always, but like it really depends on the cycle. I should make another training why I actually don't necessarily recommend cycle syncing in the way that it's usually taught. I think cycle syncing is a good foundation, but cycle attunement is better because every cycle is going to be different for a woman. And the actual way that you're going to be able to learn how to be in relationship to regulation and resolution is through attunement and presence. And a great thing is like just asking yourself what you need in the cycle, like entrusting the wisdom of your body to come through. Now, another part of this is that I think that what I want to touch upon is that the vagus nerve, um, 80% of the vagus nerve fibers, so the vagus nerve, right, running all the way down our spine, connect from body to brain. So this is why body-led, I think therapy is incredible. It's not to say cognitive therapy or mindset or any of those things are bad, but we also have the data that 20% of the brain communicates to the body. So what does that tell us? 20% of the brain communicates to the body, while 80% of the vagus nerve fibers communicate from body to brain. What does that tell us? That our bodies are so wise. Our bodies have so much wisdom, right, to create this regulation. So when we're tending and watering the physiology, we create a lot of sustained health and wellness and capacity for our life. So there's so much to get into, and I wanted to keep these trainings very short and sweet so you guys have the foundations rather than it being an hour. Usually, a lot of my paid spaces, I'll like talk for a lot longer or we'll go a lot more in depth, but I want it to be digestible, especially when we're learning about the body, because I think sometimes when we overload ourselves with information, we can't digest and actually integrate. And I think the best way to experience oxytocin is just even doing a small practice with ourselves. So, does anyone have any questions about any of the information I shared before I kind of move into just some basic oxytocin practices that you can do at any time? I'll just give you guys a minute. Yeah, cycle attunement. I need to write an essay on it. I think because cycle attunement, I'll just riff on this a little bit. Cycle syncing teaches us that every cycle and every woman's cycle is the same. Have you guys ever noticed that? Where it's like, when you're in your luteal phase, you need to do this. When you're in your menstrual phase and you're bleeding, you need to do this. Da, 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 da. And it's great foundation when you're building the blocks of like creating a relationship with your female body. But then the advanced level is like your cycle is going to change in the seasons of your life. You might be super social during your luteal phase. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know your body. You know your body. And it also brings the power back to relationship with your body, which is where all the alchemy happens. You explained it so well. No questions. Okay, amazing. So, I guess another segue that I want to talk about actually before we do the practice is sensations and sensuality are a huge way that we experience oxytocin. So, with everyone that was fighting with me in the comments of my essays and Substack notes of saying it was surface level, it's not. Sensuality is very deep. Sensuality and like our senses, wearing silk, listening to music, laughing, really brings us into our senses. Sensuality is a key pillar in particular about nervous system regulation. If you're a man too, senses are really important to understand. Um, Again, I have just so much to say around nervous system regulation, and sometimes I'm like, I wanna post a Substack note and a Substack essay every day, but that would be overwhelming for you guys. But another thing I wanna talk about in eventually deeper conversation is that we often get stuck in feeling. I feel overwhelmed. I feel this, where we want to even go deeper into the sensations. So, one thing I always ask my clients when I'm working with them and what I bring them to is like, if they're feeling overwhelmed or they're feeling stressed, we have to go deeper than the feeling because often when we're feeling something, most people relate to feelings from this like cognitive function rather than like, well, how does your body personally experience stress? Oh, I feel tightness in my chest. I feel like maybe like a little pain in my back. I feel like a buzzing in my left ear. So we're starting to also build the language of sensation of how you experience your body. So this is a segue because once we start to understand sensations, when we are feeling stress, when we are feeling this increase of stress, whether we're in our luteal phase, maybe you're a mom and newborn is crying, maybe there's something stressful happening in your job. For men too, this is helpful, right? Instead of going into just naming the feeling, when we bring back ourselves to sensations, I just want us all to practice this, maybe feeling into something, um, either good or bad. So maybe something stressful, just so we can kind of understand the titration of how sensuality can bring us back to some sort of place of resolution and regulation. For example, something that's stressful that's kind of upcoming in my life is I have a little bit of tension point with my mom right now, and we're gonna have a conversation, and I'm gonna see her next Monday. So I notice myself, I'm also in luteal and I'm feeling more sensitive and I can feel that there's like this stress response. So I want everyone to just kind of think of something that maybe is a little stressful right now and invite that feeling in of stress into their body. And then you can either close your eyes if you're at the gym or you're driving or I don't know what you're doing. Don't close your eyes, please. But just starting to welcome in this feeling. Because the main part of this is like we want to welcome everything in and allow it to be met rather than seeing it as something to fix, right? That creates that deeper relationship with that part of ourselves. And then we're going to go even one layer deeper of what are the sensations of where we're feeling that stress in our body. And I'll give you guys a PDF that I've created for my clients that names a bunch of sensations, but I don't want to give it to you guys right yet because I want us just to have this playful experiment of not having it be wrong or right, but just you exploring your body and the terrain of your body. So, for example, when I start to think of having this conversation with my mom in this maybe stress response, and also I'm noticing a bit of grief, is that, yeah, for me, I have a little bit of tightness in my chest. It kind of feels like my shoulders want to collapse a bit. And I actually might just like let my body do that. I think a big part of somatics and nervous system regulation and the way that I teach it is that actually like letting the body go into that response, almost as if we're like allowing that body to process how it wants to process. And maybe I'm just like sitting in this kind of hunched over posture and I'm just allowing myself to just notice that sensations and maybe bringing more of a focus on that tightness in my chest. Actually, I'm noticing as I hunch over, the tightness in my chest isn't really there anymore. So that's what al- also notice when sensation tracking is you'll notice sometimes when you actually give yourself the expression to maybe lean into a posture that your body wants to go into, that it might resolve itself. But I am noticing there's still heaviness in my back body. So wherever you are, you're going to just allow yourself to explore those sensations. And maybe even breathing into heaviness in your back. Maybe there's a buzzing in your ear. Maybe you're noticing like this light energy or something heavy. And there's actually not this like perfect practice that you're meant to do, except meet that part of yourself and ask what it needs to maybe express itself. And then I may be noticing that something that would feel really good to like is like actually just stretch and allow myself to almost create like a counterpoint of heaviness to like creating more openness in the body. And then I'm just going to be with that sensation of like allowing my body to take up space and maybe taking a few deep breaths. Noticing my jaw wants to unclench, so making some funny faces. Nervous system work and somatic work is a little weird, guys. Anyone that's teaching you from this place of like stillness and meditation and like it's so rigid, I don't think is actually teaching you the depth of where it wants to go because the way that the somatic body often wants to process is a little weird and it doesn't have rhyme or reason sometimes. And then wherever you are, you can come back. And that's just a small practice that you can do by like tuning into your sensations and asking how they actually want to express themselves. Another thing, if you're noticing something that's a bit more tangible, or like, for example, maybe you can't go into like a movement practice because you're driving, or I don't know, you don't want to be like weird at the mall, or I don't know, maybe you're on a bad date or something. Whatever, something that can be a bit more tangible, like maybe you are at a stoplight in the car, or maybe you wanna, like, excuse yourself to go to the bathroom if you're on a bad day, I don't know. Something is, even just placing your hands over your eyes. There's this I'm not gonna go into this because I'm a geek about this, and I know I infor bring a lot of information to you guys, but there's so much nervous system regulation that happens in our eyes. So even just bringing hands to eyes, and we can either cover them or we can take 2 fingers and just, like, make little circles on our eyelids. I don't care how you breathe, but I do want you to stay connected to your breath. I think I have a lot of issues with a lot of breath work and the way that it's taught. I think the best breath work is one that allows you to be in your own rhythm. Taking a deep breath, maybe letting out a sigh. Something that also feels really good is like So now we kind of experience the sensuality where it's like bonding and it's more sensual and a bit more calming. But something that also is oxytocin inducing is like getting into the animal body. But I'm not going to do it on this call. But even something as simple as like can be very regulating. Vocal toning can be really regulating for the female nervous system. It can really bring us into just like there's so much tension that we hold in our jaw. We're often clenching in the jaw. And our jaws are, especially for women, are very deeply connected to the vagus nerve and our pelvic bowl. So often there you'll start to notice this. There can be a lot of jaw issues and issues in people's hormones. Oftentimes, if I see that there's like teeth issues or locked jaw a lot, often has an association with also hormones as well, which is super interesting, vice versa. So something that I often do in the morning is like really ensuring, or something that I notice when I am feeling tension and I need some more oxytocin, is even just like massaging jaw, making funny faces. If you wanna do gua sha, that's helpful too, but, like, really allowing this to, like, relax because we're often, like, holding so much tension here that we don't even realize. And the nice thing is, like, you can do this a little in public without looking weird. Maybe not, like, at people in public because people would think you're nuts or go for it. But those are things that you can do, like, in a public place that are gonna help you maybe just ground. There's some other energetic work that you can do as well, but I don't wanna overload you guys with information. And we're also at 30 minutes, which I can't believe this went by so fast. Does anyone have any questions or anything that they wanna share or any other I don't know, is anything else coming through that you guys wanna ask before I end the training? And we have another one I don't think it's next week, I think it's the following week. We have another one next week, so keep your Fridays open. I'll be here at 11 a.m. PST biweekly. No questions? Amazing. Okay. Well, as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you are wanting custom somatic practices, that is what the paid Substack membership gets you. You get to put in a request for a custom somatic practice from me, and I will record something for you specific, like relationship issues, business issues, anxiety. And the great thing about this is that a lot of practices that you find on the internet or find in libraries, they're not individual. So the way that I've curated the Substack membership is like you get some free trainings and articles, but you also get to fill out a form, tell me what's going on in your life, telling me your health history or whatever, 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 and I will create you a custom somatic practice. And if you're paying every month, you get a somatic practice every month from me. No pressure at all. And also one of the paid things that I'm going to be doing in this space and trainings is going to be a piece more around sensuality and the female nervous system. So if you're wanting access to that, upgrade to paid. Otherwise, these trainings are free, kind of bi-weekly, so you get kind of a little touch point of that. That was awesome. Yeah, of course. Thank you all for being here. I truly just am like loving this community so much, and it really means so much to me that you're taking time out of your Fridays to be with me and practice female nervous system work and really be in this movement of like the female nervous system is so important to have in conversations, and the work that we're doing is not just like impacting ourselves, but it changes the culture of how we are as women taking our bodies seriously. And that to me is just like the best thing ever. So I appreciate all of you for showing up and tending to your bodies. Even all the males in the room tending to yourself, it really is revolutionary work. So I'm just so appreciative of all of you. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your weekend, and I'm trying to figure out how we can be more of a community inside of the Substack chat. So I'm going to be finding ways that we can all talk to each other more, all practice together more, and things like that. And also, if you guys have any ideas, let me know. Okay, everyone. Lots of blessings, lots of love, and I will see you on Substack.